Why did the Soviet Union ultimately lose the Cold War to a Big Mac? As crazy as that sounds, the end of the Cold War actually had a lot more to do with the Golden Arches than you may think. In fact, this McDonald's in downtown Moscow arguably did more to bring about the eventual collapse of the Soviet Union than anything else going on at that time. So, how on earth could Ronald McDonald bring about the downfall of what was once a global superpower? To understand this, we have to look at the history of the late Soviet Union. By the end of the 1980s, the Soviet economy was in shambles. Decades of central planning from the country's Marxist leaders had led to crippling shortages of everything from toilet paper to food. Inflation was out of control, and black markets popped up all over the country to illegally provide things to people that the government simply could not. And in response to the looming economic collapse of the country, Mikhail Gorbachev introduced a series of reforms under the banners of glasnost and perestroika. The goal was to liberalize both the economy and society after decades of rigid control by the Communist Party. And a key element of these reforms was the gradual introduction of free market capitalism to the Soviet Union for the first time since the Russian Revolution. With Russia finally permitting some semblance of free markets for the first time in 80 years, major American corporations immediately realized the potential to invest into one of the largest untapped markets on Earth. And among these corporations was McDonald's, which had been trying in vain to open up a restaurant in the Soviet Union for more than 14 years. Now, at the time, communist headliners had blocked these plans at every turn, but under Gorbachev, the first McDonald's in Russia finally opened in Moscow's Pushkin Square on the morning of January 31st, 1990. And over 30,000 people waited in freezing cold temperatures for hours to get a chance to try a Big Mac for the first time. TV crews flocked to cover the event with lines wrapping around multiple city blocks. The grand opening was broadcast not only to the entire Soviet Union, but to the rest of the world. For Russians, the opening of a McDonald's restaurant, which was synonymous with capitalism and American culture, was a very tangible symbol of the impending collapse of the Soviet Union. McDonald's capitalized on this moment with a marketing campaign that resonated deeply with the Russian public, proclaiming that if you can't go to America, come to McDonald's in Moscow. Ironically enough, this slogan helps to explain exactly how McDonald's brought down what had previously been a global superpower. By encapsulating the allure of the West and the freedoms it represented, this marketing exposed just how oppressive and inefficient the Soviet economy had become. The Russian people were loving it. But hardliners within the Communist Party were furious by this sudden embrace of free market capitalism. In August 1991, they attempted a coup to try to reimpose Marxist-Leninism on the country. But that coup came apart almost overnight, thanks to a backlash by a public which was now enthralled with the idea of free market capitalism. In the end, this only hastened the demise of the Soviet Union, and on December 26, 1991, the hammer and sickle was finally lowered from Kremlin Square for the last time. Thus, the Soviet Union, a global superpower for nearly half a century, saw its demise not through military defeat, but rather at the hands of a fast food chain. McDonald's entry into Moscow had allowed the Russian public to see, or rather taste, just how terrible their country's communist system truly was. And it was ultimately those same citizens who helped to topple the system that had ruled over them for almost 9 decades.